morning on this summer solstice today. So longest day of the year. Hopefully the sun will shine for us later and we can enjoy a little bit of sunshine and late hours, into the late hours. I wanted to welcome you all as usual, and also a special welcome to those of you who are new and have joined us for the first time today. If you don't already know, we have been running these wellbeing at home sessions where we invite different specialists to share their wisdom and stream that into your homes during lockdown so that we can enhance your well-being. And we're planning to continue throughout July. We'll see if it goes on beyond that. We're preparing a survey right now that we'll send out to everybody. Oh, can I just ask everyone to mute, please? I don't know why. Yeah, yeah, beyond that, we're sending out a survey to everybody, and there'll be questions around this, continuing with the wellbeing at home session. So I hope you'll be able to respond to that and give us some feedback on that. So today we have a special guest who is Jay Ray, and Jay is actually a client of ours. So she travelled with us, I think it was last year, and contacted us after her return to tell us about her work and what she does, and came and met with us and actually gave us a little session for the team. And I think that was about managing negative emotions, wasn't it, at the time? It was really good. We really enjoyed it, and it helps some people in the team like deal with that little negative voice that goes on in your head every now and again. So we're very thankful and grateful to Jay for doing that for us. And then we were chatting with Jay about, you know, what she can help us with for wellbeing at home. And obviously the subject of managing uncertainty is very appropriate for our current times. And it's something that I've had to deal with personally, as you can imagine. But I have a little story to tell you before I pass you over to Jay, just to give you an example of how I dealt with it. So just before the coronavirus took off, and, you know, it happened also very quickly, I had planned a very big trip to Peru. And at the end of February, I went to Peru with some friends and my other half, and I was actually researching a wellbeing tour that we thought we would run at some point for our clients in Peru. And this was literally just, you know, people were talking a little bit about coronavirus, but no one really understood the seriousness and how contagious it was at the time. So off I go to Peru, and whilst I'm in Peru, we start hearing that our flights are being cancelled on the way out, coming for our return. And to cut a very long story short, we were given 24 hours to get out the country because they were shutting down the borders in Peru, and we were stuck in some very remote place, and we had to try and get back to Lima. So we got back to Lima, and there weren't any international flights that evening. And there were some, they were to the US, but we couldn't get into the US because our visas had been revoked. So we checked ourselves into a Holiday Inn at the airport, and we got stranded at this Holiday Inn at the airport for close to 2 weeks, whereby the whole country went into emergency lockdown. There were military on the streets. There were no services in the hotel. Our food was literally delivered to us into our room in like these polystyrene kind of containers. And we were allowed out once a day for about 20 minutes, and we had to show our passport to military. It was really full on, guys. It was like really, and this came out of nowhere, and we had no idea how we were going to get home because there were no flights in or out of the country. And we were literally looking at the runway, and there were just nothing. There was nothing going on. The embassy was, we couldn't reach our embassy. I mean, obviously, we weren't the only ones going through this. There were all kinds of stuff happening around the world. And so it was it was a real time of uncertainty for me. And at the same time, the business over here was going through lots of issues. You know, I was hearing from the team about, you know, flights and everything being cancelled. So there's a lot going on. And I had to deal with this daily uncertainty. And it was very easy to fall into a state of anxiety because, you know, I was anxious. I didn't know when I would come home. I have elderly parents as well. And what I realized is I started to be grateful for the very small things that were happening throughout my day. So every morning they would deliver the same breakfast at the same time, and it was eggs. And every morning I would get excited about eggs. You know, I never ever thought I would be in that position where I would just, you know, whereas before I'd be really picky about what I ate and what time I would eat and all of this stuff. And all of a sudden that just all kind of faded into oblivion. And it was those very small things that happened throughout the day that got me through it. And, you know, finding humor in, you know, some of my husband's very rubbish jokes, but all of a sudden they became very funny for me. And just our day-to-day routine became very important. Anyway, eventually, obviously, we got back home on a repatriation flight, and then I got back here, and, you know, I had to deal with all the business issues that were going on here. But what I've realized over these last 3-4 months is, and still now, you know, we don't know. There's so many things we don't know about, and we can't look to the future. We can't be certain about the future. But what I've learned is that you have to live each day as it comes and be grateful for that day and be grateful for the moment that you're in and what joy you can get from that moment. So anyway, that's my little preaching for the morning, but I just wanted to share that story with you because it was a personal situation for me, and uncertainty is a very big deal, I know, for many people, but it is also for me. So Jay, I'm going to now hand over to you. Before I do, I just want to tell you about Jay. Jay is a neuroscientist and a psychotherapist, and she did work in the finance industry, in a big corporate environment, but then realized that her mission was really to help people with their mental health using her background. So that's what she has been doing, and she's been successful with that. So we're very lucky to have her here today. I will pass over now to Jay. She will run through a whole process with you. Please, can you keep your yourselves on mute? And this will be an interactive process, and if you have any comments, just put them in the chat box, please. But Jay will also reiterate. So Jay, where are you? Jay?
I'm here.
Lovely to see you. Welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you, Stella, for that really generous introduction, and also thank you for sharing some of your stories as well. I think some of the strategies that you talked about are wonderful, and it's just really good to hear that, you know, you've developed your own coping strategies. And I'm sure as the morning goes on, we're going to be hearing a lot more from everybody else. So welcome, everybody. My goal for this session this morning with Wellbeing at Home is to really, you know, just arm you with some simple, practical, powerful strategies. So, you know, guys, I hope you have your cups of coffee ready, and, you know, let's begin. So just a little bit of housekeeping, just to reiterate what Stella just said. Please, could you keep your microphones on mute, and please use the Zoom chat to interact with me. There's, you know, 70 odd people on this call, and I really want to have an opportunity to hear from everybody, and Zoom is just really the easiest way for me to be able to manage that. So let's get right down to business. So my talk today is on empowering strategies during uncertain times. And look, you know, this is a really difficult time, and I'm certainly not going to sit here and profess to being an expert in navigating your worries, your current worries, through a global pandemic, because quite frankly, I'm not an expert. in my mind, no one's an expert because we've actually never been here before. But what I am going to do during the course of the next hour or so is just lean into some of my knowledge, my experience, both pre and post-pandemic, because obviously I've worked with a lot of people post-pandemic as well. And I'm just going to share with you in the next hour some really helpful perspectives. And I also want to take some time this morning to hear some of the things that are on your mind too. So I kind of get a sense of, you know, some of the things that are going on for you guys. And I also know that me just talking at you like this for the next hour via this technology is quite exhausting. I know that when I'm listening to Zoom webinars and someone's just kind of talking at me, even if it's interesting, I tend to zone out. So I'm going to put some pauses in, I'm going to put some breaks in, and I'm going to come in and just check in with you guys as well. So, you know, that's definitely going to happen. So we have about sort of 45 minutes or so together, and unsurprisingly, I'm not going to have time to cover all the content. As you can imagine, uncertainty is just a huge topic, but I am going to hold a short Q&A at the end as well. So as I'm moving through the talk this morning with you guys, you know, if there's questions that come up for you, just drop them in the Zoom chat and Stella will collect them on your behalf, and then she can ask them to me at the end. So, you know, just as things are coming up, drop them in the chat, you know, in case you forget about it later, and Stella will pick that up for you. Now, the other thing you can do is just wait until the end when I open up the chat for Q&A, and you can ask me your questions right at the end. And the brilliant thing about Zoom is that you can also send me questions privately. So if there are questions that are coming up for you, but you don't necessarily want to share it with everyone else on the Zoom chat, like I know some things are just too personal, so drop me a private message and I will read your question out and answer it, and I won't divulge your identity. So, you know, your anonymity is preserved, okay? So I usually kick things off with an icebreaker, but we're about 15 minutes in, so I'm just gonna dive straight into their content. And so I'm going to share my screen just because I've got some PowerPoint slides that accompany my talk today, but I'm still going to be visible. So I'm still going to be in the corner of the screen. So you'll still see me talking at you. Okay. All right. So this is always a scary moment for me sharing my screen because I just hope it works. All right. So via the Zoom chat, can you guys just drop me a yes if you can see my shared screen? I just want to make sure it's working. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Oh, wonderful. Thank you guys for confirming. And also it's nice to see that people are still awake. All right. So I'm going to begin this talk like everyone else begins their talk and just share a little bit more about me. I'm not going to hang around here too long, but I just want to kind of give you guys a flavour of who I am. Okay, so I actually have 3 distinct roles, and so I consult for a private addiction clinic in central London, so I work with addicts. I also have 4 private clinics, including an online practice, and as the slide here shows, I also do public speaking engagements. So I work with many different large organisations, and I absolutely love that because I really enjoy interacting with people. I am kind of slowly adjusting, speaking to this little black dot at the top of my screen, but you know, it's never really going to be as fun. But I know that's just one of the many adjustments that we're all having to make. It's not just me, I know. So a large part of my work as an empowerment strategist, because that's the fancy title that I give myself, is I help people change like destructive and self-sabotaging thoughts and behaviors, and I help them, I suppose, transform that relationship with their challenging or sometimes traumatic life experiences, and particularly in addiction. So you can imagine I work with some pretty heavy cases, and what I do is I help people break free from patterns to stop them from becoming, well, what may only be very predictable future. Okay, and so I've actually had a tremendous amount of success in that area because, guys, one of the things that I've learned, and I've worked with thousands of clients is in the city, is that many of my clients, they're city professionals, they're smart, switched on people, right? And they very well understand. So many people that come to see me, they very well understand that they're stuck in a particular area of their life or their career, but they're just I suppose, simply unaware of like what an empowered way to deal with their challenges are. It's like that moment where you can't see the wood for the trees. You know you've got a problem, you know you're stuck on it, but you just can't see a healthy way out, right? And so that's what I do. I teach my clients how to become empowered in the midst of their chaos. So I use a combination of education, I do role play, so I'm role playing with them, empowering strategies, and also I do therapy, and they're accountable to me through the process. So what we do is we develop this new way of thinking, of feeling and behaving. So scientifically put, what we're doing is reconditioning the brain, okay? And we're creating healthy patterns, which is tremendously hard work to do alone, right? And so we begin this transformational journey of mastering the mindset without being stuck, and here's the key point of difference, without being stuck in therapy in the long term. Because guys, you know, I've worked in the city, I know what it's like to be on the other side, and I fundamentally believe, like to my core, that we all have the answers to our own lives, okay? And all I do, really quite simply, is I just help people tune into their inner guidance system, and I help my clients to learn to navigate the world from their own internal compass, right? And so we don't just simply discuss problems over and over, but we're learning to make new healthy connections for long-term sustainable change without dependency on me or indeed therapy in the longer term, right? And that's being empowered. I know that changing the way you think is entirely possible, regardless of your circumstances and regardless of how long you've held on to thoughts that don't serve you. Because if it's possible to help addicts, and you know, the people I work with, often they've lost everything: money, family, health, successful careers, to name a few. But if it's possible to move these people to think out of the gutter and repivot their mindset to live purposeful lives, then there has to be hope for the rest of us on this call today, okay? And so it's my approach that's opened the doors for me to speak in large corporate audiences about self-empowerment. My clients, and the ones in the addiction clinic, they're like, Jay, can you come into my company? Can you teach this? So in essence, I became like this accidental speaker. It actually wasn't anything I planned, and I'm not trained in it in any way, but I am a passionate advocate of living in an empowered way and teaching simple, powerful strategies. And that's what I'm going to be doing today, okay? And so, like all of you here, I'm no stranger to the struggles that we're currently facing with uncertainty. I used to regularly question, like, why I used to spend, like, I probably spent like 15 years reading self-help books, but I always used to say, well, why having this knowledge isn't buoying me up when I really need it? I used to read and absorb myself in all this learning and reading, but when I really needed it, I just used to get really stuck. And so I needed to learn how to walk across the tightrope away from fear. And this is how I've carved my career, right? By teaching people to do the same. And I teach people that even these uncertain times that we're facing right now can still be a huge enabler of our creativity. And so the tools and information that I'm going to share with you today are going to be applicable to all areas of your life. So, you know, you guys on the call today, whether you've got concerns around your career or personal life, strategies I'm going to share are going to cover all of that, okay? So let me give you an overview of what's to follow. So there's going to be 3 key areas that I'm going to focus on today. So we're going to explore the mind, right? So I want to show you where uncertainty manifests itself in the brain and how uncertainty manifests itself in the brain. And it's jargon free. Don't worry, I'm not going to bamboozle you with all these fancy words. Just want to show you that uncertainty it's something that happens to all of us. Like, we're not unique here, right? We're also going to look at some of the conscious and unconscious ways we could be holding ourselves back right now. And interwoven through most of my talk are going to be some simple, powerful strategies that we can deploy to enact empowering change, okay? And these are strategies that I use in my clinical work too, okay? So before we begin, let me just start by addressing our current concerns, because we all have them, and let's see, I'm sure we all fit into one of these categories, if not all of them. So right now, we're all kind of waiting for certainty, right? And that could be certainty of, when's this period of lockdown going to end? When am I going to see my family or friends again, or loved ones again? And this wait, just waiting to know what's going to happen, can often feel like you're being tortured by like millions of tiny cuts. It can feel really uncomfortable. My clients are like, Jay, waiting this out is so uncomfortable, and waiting this out is so mentally draining. And that's because our brain prefers to know the outcome just one way or another, just to take the edge off. Our brain, it doesn't like to be uncertain, okay? And studies show, right, this is really crazy, but studies actually show that people are calmer when they have to anticipate pain than when they have to anticipate uncertainty, because the pain is certain. And I remember there was this one study that I did in my neuroscience class, right? I didn't do the study. It's a study we looked at in my neuroscience class, okay? And so there was a group of participants, and they were split into two. So 50% of the participants, so half the class, were told, you are 100% sure, for sure going to receive a small electric shock, okay? And then the other half of the room were told, there's only a 50% chance that you're going to receive a small electric shock. Now, the people who were told that, 100% certainty they were going to receive an electric shock, they were calmer and less agitated than the ones that were told there's only a 50% chance they're going to get an electric shock. So the pain of being uncertain or living with uncertainty is really real, right? So look, I don't have to convince any of you of that right now. We're all living in uncertain times. So going back to some of our current uncertainties, what I'm hearing a lot about right now is this ambiguous messaging around lockdown, easing measures, or concerns around family or loved ones or travel or career. And they're all huge stressors. And these are the kind of thoughts, if we perpetuate them, are enough to make any one of us feel sick. So let me just come out of the Zoom chat. I want to just take a moment now via the Zoom chat to just share with me some of your current worries. Could be around personal life, professional life, just, the economy in general. Like, what are some of the things via the Zoom chat, if you could just share with me, that you're currently sort of struggling with now? It'd be really nice to hear from you. Let's connect and share. I've got some private messages. I'm just trying to interact them. Keeping older families safe. Yeah, just concerns around people that we can't be close to right now. Catching it, yes. And again, that social media as well really perpetuates our fear, right? And we're all quite afraid. Finances, yeah, can our jobs weather these storms? Can we, if we don't have a job, are we going to get a job? So yeah, these are real concerns. I'm a chef, I'm worried I may never open up again. Yes, yeah, I hear you. My adult children's future. Yeah, particularly the ones who are like, graduating from college and going, or university and going out into the world. All those people who, they're not having a graduation, or they're not sure when they're going to sit their exams. Selling my house due to divorce. Uncertainty if I can find a rental to move into. Yeah, money. What will happen beyond furlough scheme? Yeah, that's going to run out too. So, what's going to happen? Brexit, how to deal with the job and redundancies, keeping parents, the parents and safe and well, not being able to make plans. Yeah, right. Thank you so much for sharing. And, I'm sure many of these issues are stuff that the rest of us can all relate to. How to navigate the journey forward in a clear, focused way, plan for your future. Will it come back? Will there be a second peak? Unstable, power-filled word leaders. Yes, Maureen, I hear you, right? So thank you so much for sharing. So, these are the kind of thoughts, if we just focus in on them, we're just going to make ourselves really sick just thinking about them, because they're really stressful. Right? So what we need to do is focus on thoughts to sort of lower these stresses. And I'm going to show you how. Okay, so I'm going to give you some strategies to show you how we're going to do that. Okay, but that was brilliant. Really powerful sharing, guys, so I really appreciate that. So I'm just going to take a moment now and share with you this quote. I love this quote, and it's by Jennifer Reed Hawthorne, and it reads this: negative thoughts, and Stella sort of mentioned negative thoughts in the beginning, are particularly draining. Thoughts containing words like, so if you're having thoughts that are containing words like never, should, can't, or complaints, or whining, or thoughts that diminish our own or another sense of self-worth, deplete the body by producing corresponding chemicals that weaken our physiology. No wonder we're all exhausted at the end of the day. Now, what I think Jennifer really beautifully illustrates in this quote is that negative thoughts impact more than just our mental health. I'm not here just to talk about mental health, but also our physical well-being too. So whenever you notice that you're feeling at the end of the day, like just particularly exhausted, just take a moment to check in and see how you actually spoke to yourself during the course of the day. Now, a really helpful strategy to manage yourself when you're feeling stuck in your negative thought spiral is to stop and ask yourself, what would I say to someone I love right now who came to me feeling the same way? Because that's often easier than trying to be positive. You know, when you're feeling really negative and someone's like, oh, just replace it with positive thoughts. I know, right? That ain't going to cut it sometimes, okay? And so it's hard to switch from being uber negative to being positive. And so think about a child, if you have children, or a loved one, a partner, a parent, a best friend. Think about someone that you really, love, and imagine they came to you with the same thoughts that you're currently experiencing, and just stop and take a moment and say, well, what would I say to them? And then talk to yourself in that way, okay? We're going to have many more strategies, but let's just move on to some juicy stuff, which is the brain. Okay, so I'm not going to hover here too long, but I do want to share with you a little bit of science of the brain, because this is really going to help you get some perspective. Okay, and again, it's jargon free, so don't worry about it. Okay, so let's start by asking ourselves a question, and it's a really obvious question. It's the question that's probably on everyone's minds. Why does our brain give us such fits when we're faced with uncertainty? And it's really simply this: we are wired to react to fear, period. Okay, and where does that fear reside? So where in our brain does fear come from? Well, it resides here in your limbic system. Okay, so you'll see that on my picture down here. So I want to talk a little bit more about this limbic system. So it's located here, as you can see, towards the back of your brain. Right, and this limbic system, it's known as your fight or flight, as its survival part of your brain. Okay, so for example, right, if you're standing in a jungle, and let me think about this. Okay, you're standing in a jungle and there's a tiger, and this tiger's like running straight for you. It's your little limbic system that says, I think you better run for your life. Okay, so the limbic system, it's a very instinctual part of the brain, and it just kicks in. It tells you, run. Okay, so it monitors your internal world. So it monitors your internal emotions, such as fear. So it's your limbic systems that's responsible for that. Okay, whereas your rational system, so as you can see here in the picture, the rational system is at the front of your brain, right? So it's right here, and that's like your thinking, your strategizing, your analyzing part of your brain. Okay, and that cares about analysis of the external world. Okay, so as a recap, your limbic system is concerned with your internal world, and your rational system is concerned with your external world. Okay, now what happens is this: often the limbic part, so if we imagine this is your limbic part, and then we imagine this is your rational part, and often they start battling, right? They're battling to control one output, because there's only one output that comes out, and that output is your behavior. Okay, so they're battling to control. So your limbic system wants to do one thing, your rational system wants to do one thing, and they're battling to control your output. So when the fear of uncertainty descends, so you guys were sharing some of your fears earlier. So when those fears are descending, we can get hijacked by our limbic system. So basically it wins the war when it's going with your rational system. So if your limbic system wins, we get hijacked by our fear. Okay, so, and what happens then? is that then it inhibits good decision making, because you can't do both at the same time. So when we're in our limbic system, we're dealing with all our fear, and we can't make good decisions because we're kind of going to a panic, as it were. Now, people who are good at dealing with uncertainty, because there's people who are good at dealing with this kind of uncertain ways, they're really wary of this fear spot in their brain. So they can spot their fears when they begin to surface. Okay, so what they do is they can contain their fear before it spins out of control. And so once they're aware, my limbic system's trying to take over, they label that thought as a fear thought, and then they refocus their mind to their actual rational thinking part of the brain on information that they actually have to go on versus that fear story in their head. So what they do is, throughout the process, they're just reminding themselves, my limbic system's trying to take over, I'm scared, and what I need to do, instead of going into instinct mode, is that I need to engage my rational thinking brain, and that needs to be the one in charge right now. So essentially what they do is they tell that limbic system, just be quiet, you're not very helpful, I'm not going to focus on you, and I'm just going to make a logical decision right here and now, if there's a decision to be made. So now if we think about uncertainty in a more day-to-day context, so that's the science bit out of the way. So if we think about uncertainty in a more day-to-day context, just due to your brain's utter disdain for uncertainty, because it just doesn't like uncertainty, your brain starts to make up all sorts of untested stories, literally hundreds of times a day. So for example, like if you have a friend who doesn't respond to a text, right? Or you have a colleague who starts wearing a frown when you're talking to them, or uses a certain tone of voice with you, or a friend, a friend or a partner is acting a little bit off, the chances are you're going to assume the worst, you're going to over-personalize the event, and you're going to jump to all sorts of conclusions, okay? And why do you do that? Because your brain will do almost anything for the sake of certainty. So if we leave it unchecked, right, your certainty scanner, this need to find certainty, can start to siphon away all the joy out of your life, right? So then what are some of these thoughts that siphon away our joy, right? Let's take a look at a couple of examples. So these are some of the things that I'm hearing a lot about in my clinics right now. I'm not good enough. It's all my fault. What if I can't cope? What if I can't get a job? When is this going to end? What if I or my family get sick? And you guys also shared in the Zoom chat a few moments ago some of your thoughts that are really weighing heavily on your mind right now. Okay, it's really important to recognize them and reality check them. Okay, so for example, let me just pick one of these. I'm not good enough. I hear that one a lot right now. So if you keep telling yourself, I'm just not good enough, and that might be because you're struggling to find balance, or you've got competing priorities, you can't get a job, and that's just how you're feeling. I'm not good enough. I've never been good enough. Is this ever going to get better? These are just some of the thoughts that just start to make us feel really, really sick, right? Ask yourself, have you actually never been good enough at anything? Now you might say, well, yes, Jay, I've actually never felt good enough in balancing my work and balancing my personal life. And you might actually be able to give me a million reasons where you could substantiate that thought. Now, I work in addiction, right? So I hear that a lot, okay? So I know that these kind of thoughts, they're habitual, they're compelling, and for many of my clients, this is just the world they live in. But if you give yourself permission just to let that one thought go in that one moment, create some space. And in that space lies possibilities that could never have existed there before. You see, by being open to the possibility of just creating a little bit of space means your inner world, it becomes more creative, it becomes more expansive, okay? So if you're living right now with a hopeless, angry, defeated attitude, even if it's completely justifiable, then that's where you will live. Okay. Negative minds, what they do, they tend to over-focus on what isn't right, what isn't happening, and the lack of opportunity. And especially in my addiction clinic, that's the kind of mindset that my clients enter with. So when my clients come to me, they feel hopeless, they feel negative, and their mindset is fixed. In fact, most people I see feel those kind of emotions in one part of their lives or another. And it's no easy task just to shift away from those habitual thoughts. They're really quite compelling. They just kind of drag you in. They're it's almost like a force that's stronger than you sometimes. But right now, since we're practicing social distancing, why not also practice creating some space between you and your thoughts? And I'm going to be showing you how. Okay. So currently about 70% of my client base are professionals that work in the city. And one of the things I hear the most is that their life just isn't where it should be for one reason or another. And perhaps it's because they feel they're not effectively juggling their work and parenthood. And now the killer of their creativity, it isn't their knowledge and it's not their capabilities. It's the story building we do in our head. It's all the reasons that you're not being promoted, you're not coping as well as all the other mums in the WhatsApp group, or you're struggling alone at home, or you're struggling with difficult personalities or difficult bosses or difficult partners. These are just some of the examples that I'm hearing about right now. Now, I'm never ever going to argue that those experiences aren't real and aren't completely valid. Like, no way. Like, I totally get it, and it feels so real. Okay. But I will ask you one question. How is it working out for you holding onto that story? Where are the possibilities in that narrative? Now, by asking that really simple question, it starts to interrupt your pattern in your brain. Okay. And in that one moment, just one moment, don't worry about tomorrow or anywhere else, just in that one moment, you can choose a different thought, just in that one moment. So for example, you can change, just not where I should be, to I'm doing my absolute best right now. Right? This is a big difference in those two languages, right? So one's affirming, the other one's just negative. Okay, so just to repeat that, I'm not where I should be, to I'm doing my absolute best right now in one moment. I'm not talking about the rest of the day. I'm not even talking about the afternoon. I'm just talking about this one moment. It can bring you some much needed relief. Now, sometimes that's too hard. Sometimes you can't even bring yourself to change to a positive mindset. And I know, right? Sometimes the thoughts are too heavy. So what I do, so if you guys are experiencing thoughts that are just too heavy and you're like, Jay, I can't switch to being, to a slightly more positive narrative. I can't do that. I'm like, good, fine, okay, I hear you. So what I tend to ask my clients to do in the clinic is I say to them, right, okay, that really heavy thought that you have, I want you to put it into a balloon, right? The ones that you're really struggling with and they're just too dark and they're too heavy. I want you to put it into a balloon. And then you're going to say to the balloon, I don't know what to do with you, but I choose to let you go. And then you just let that balloon containing your thought just go into the ether, because you don't actually know what to do with it. So then we let it go. Now that's particularly relevant to the parents joining this call who are trying to juggle managing kids and working in a cramped environment, or those arguing with their family or friends or partners, or those not feeling uber motivated, or those feeling lonely and isolated. If your thoughts are just too heavy right now, I totally get it. And if talking more positively right now just isn't happening, I totally get it. And it's so okay. The weight of this unnatural way of being is taking its toll on all of us, okay? So instead of berating ourselves, we can choose to simply put the heavy thought into a balloon and just say, I choose to let you go. I want you to remember one thing, and that is we're not working from home or being at home. We are experiencing a global trauma and trying to work from home or trying to be at home. And let's not forget that really important distinction of just where we're at right now. Now, the purpose of doing these exercises isn't because you're going to miraculously believe a new kind of thought, or you're miraculously going to put all your negative thoughts into balloons and watch them fly into the ether. Okay? But what it does do, it interrupts your pattern. Okay? And it suspends that negative thought. And so by repeating a healthier narrative, or just surrendering what you can't control in one moment, it begins the process of slowing down your autonomic nervous system and bringing you some much needed relief in this one moment. Okay. So now let's perhaps take a moment to, again, let's connect in the Zoom chat and maybe share with me. I'm going to be talking about some more strategies in just a few moments, but maybe let's just share in the Zoom chat. What are some of the actions that work for you when you're trying to de-escalate your negativity, to manage your mental space or manage your morale? What is, I'd love to hear, let me just come out of the Zoom chat. I'd love to hear some of the things that help you guys too. And remember, whatever you share could actually help someone else in the Zoom chat too. So, let's share what's working for you, what's helping you. Going for a walk. Yes, Jocelyn, like that is my go-to mechanism as well. Just getting out into nature and taking a digital detox. Smile. Oh, I love that. Maureen, yoga and going for a walk in nature. Yeah, yoga is really powerful. Walking in nature. Waking up with a clean page, clean start. Oh, I love that. Walking with an audible book, yeah, or podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. Baking, oh gosh. Bouncing on the rebounder. Yeah, just moving your body, that just gets your endorphins going, right? A 15-minute exercise session and then followed by deep breathing. Oh, I'm going to talk about breathing later. Love the deep breathing, powerful stuff. Playing with my dog, yeah, journaling, brilliant one, Artemis, and I'll be touching on that too. Conscious breathing, oh, I love this, Olga, knowing this is temporary and doing something absorbing, like VAT. Watching the birds splashing in the bird bath, oh, that sounds lovely. I don't have a garden, so that sounds like a nice thought. Having a cup of tea and talking to a friend on the doorstep. Do not underestimate the power of just having a rant to a friend. Realizing what I can't control, keeping a grateful journal. Oh, I love that, Uzma. Noting 10 things I was grateful for at the end of the day. Brilliant, brilliant. Really powerful stuff. And that kind of touches on what Stella was saying at the beginning of the call about just checking, being grateful for her eggs. Art, yoga nidra. Yeah, I love yoga nidra. I tend to fall asleep when doing that, but yeah, I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, guys. All right, I'm going to go back because I want to just keep sharing more good stuff. Oh, hang on, I've got one more message here. So let me just read that too. Oh, let me see if I can bring that back. This is okay, so this is more of a question, so I will look at questions later. Okay, so now one of the most powerless phrases that we could be saying to ourselves right now is, I wonder if you guys can guess, giving myself a drum roll, is this: what if, right? Oh my God, it's crazy. Okay, now I grew up in had immigrant parents, over from India in a very traditional Asian family. And when I was younger, I had this upbringing where I was told to be seen and not heard and just do what I'm told, right? Thinking wasn't an option. And so I wasn't, I grew up in an environment where I didn't cultivate any friendships or interact with society in any meaningful way because of my parents, God bless them, that was their fear, right? They had their own fears and insecurities. And so when I was younger, I would torture myself with a lot of what if questions, making the future a really scary place, because that's all what ifs do. They just make the future a really scary place in your mind. And it's so exhausting, it was so exhausting. The questions I would ask myself would be, what would I say? what if I'm just destined to have a life like this, just unhappy and unfulfilled, right? That's the kind of stuff I used to say to myself. What if my parents don't accept me? What if I make the wrong decisions? And so on and so on. So these thoughts threaten to destroy me on a daily basis. And I certainly would not be teaching self-empowerment to organizations and having conversations like the conversations that I'm having with you today if I'd let my what if thoughts win. Okay, so what if thoughts, right? So what if this is going to happen? What if that's going to happen? What if I never get a job? And what if my business doesn't get up and running again, or da 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 da. What those thoughts do, it's really simple. They throw fuel and fire onto your stress and your worry, and there's no place for them in your thinking once you have good contingency plans in place. Look, right now, things can literally go in a million different directions. And the more time we spend worrying about the things that we can't control, the less time you'll spend focusing on taking small actions, minuscule actions that will calm you down and keep your stress under control, because we've just let our fear take over. Our limbic system's like just in overdrive. Okay, so we need to engage our rational brain and just take small, minuscule actions for the next hour, for the next day. I'm not talking about, tomorrow, just for today, just to calm down your nervous system. So successful people know that asking what if questions takes them to a place they don't want to go and they don't need to go. Okay, so if you're having the what if thoughts, put those thoughts into the balloons and say, I choose to let you go because I don't know what to do with you. And then once you choose to let them go, you're creating some space in your mind for possibilities to open up. And if you create the space, then possibilities can open up, okay? Some of my clients are like, they laugh at me. They're like, oh, Jo, that's like magical thinking. And I'm like, guys, look, it's okay. It's okay to be afraid, because I'm asking you to go down a path you perhaps have never gone down before. And by path, I mean like a new pathway in the brain. And what I say to them is like, but you know where your current thinking takes you. And so, naturally, we all default back to our negative patterns. So it's like, if we can just stay here for a few moments, there's a possibility for a new pathway to emerge that could never have existed there before. So, let's think about this for a moment. There's many challenging prospects ahead for all of you, right? And the worries and the comments based on what you shared at the beginning of the webinar, okay? And they're all real. And I can't tell you what's going to happen next, but the gauntlet I set you is to not let those fears take control of you, right? And that's easier said than done. Okay, so here's another strategy. So when my clients, and particularly right now, like post-pandemic clients, are coming to me and their worries and fears, they're in overdrive. And what I say to them is this, I'm going to allow you some worry time, right? And they just look at me like, hey, like, are you crazy? I'm like, yes. I'm going to allow you 15 minutes a day to worry, right? Typically it'll be in the evening. So we set a time, say like 8 o'clock in the evening. So I say to my clients, okay, your homework is, I'm going to allow you to worry between 8 and 8:15 p.m. So this is how it looks in practical terms. So typically when you get up, you have this moment of bliss. It's like, oh, I'm awake. And then you get flooded by all your fears, or like all the current fears and anxieties. Now, if you can say to yourself, okay, I'm going to deal with you at 8 o'clock, and then you put it into your 8 o'clock basket, right? And then you just keep moving as many thoughts as you can into the 8 p.m. basket. So your thoughts aren't going to go crazy, because you're telling your thoughts, I will deal with you, I will look at you, but I'll look at you at 8 o'clock. Okay, and then you put them into the 8 o'clock basket. It just frees up your mind to focus on other things. Okay, now that's mind mastery in action, because actually what you're really doing is you're telling your worries, I will choose when to worry about you. I will choose when the worry time is, not you. So you're taking control of your mind rather than letting your mind take control of you. Okay, let's focus on some more strategies. So the other strategy that I want to share with you is this: eating an apple, right? No, I'm joking. If only life was easy as just eating an apple and all your problems go away. Okay, so this apple, I use the apple for managing stress and anxiety, particularly when those thoughts are so intolerable, right? I want you to remember the apple. And this is when we're really looking for certainty in a situation where there is no certainty. Okay, and so it helps us refocus our attention, just on our present moment. So I'm going to walk you through it. So step one, acknowledge. So first of all, just notice what thought is in your mind right now, and just notice that it's uncertain and it's unpredictable. One. Then I want you to pause. So just pause for a few moments. Don't react to the thought or feeling in any way. Just let it be. Right, so just pausing there. Then I want you to pull back from the thought or feeling that you're currently having. Just tell yourself, this is the result of my mind trying to gain control. It's trying to find certainty in a situation that can't be, that there is no certainty. And just to remember that your thoughts aren't facts, they're just thoughts, okay? And you can pull back from them. Then the next stage of the apple is to let it go. A bit like Elsa in Frozen, right? We're just going to let it go, right? The thought or feeling, it's not harmful, right? Although it feels super unpleasant right now, it's not harmful. And you can pause, okay? And you can allow the feeling to just be, right? And then just let it go. And then I just want you to explore what's going on around you. So sometimes being in your head is just too hard. So then in which case we can just tune into your senses. What can I see? What can I taste? What can I feel? What can I smell? And just kind of grounding yourself in the present moment, right? It just takes, what it does is it just takes you out of your head for a few moments. Now, the same thoughts and the same feelings and worries may come back, and that's okay. Just keep noticing when you go inside of your worries, and then just keep repeating the apple process as many times as you need. Right, and I think it was a lady who wrote journaling in the Zoom chat earlier, and I agree. I think it's so powerful, and it's really simple. And just noticing your negative thoughts, because for me, when I write down my worrying thoughts, like, well, what if this happens, and what if that happens, and when I write them down, what it does, it takes the energy out of my head and it commits them to paper. And it's like when you rant to a friend, like once you've had a rant, you just feel a bit lighter. You feel a bit like, oh, I've got that off my system, right? And that's the same with journaling. And sometimes you've got things that you don't want to tell a friend. You don't actually want to tell anyone because it's just too private. And so in that case, if by journaling you get it out of your head, and then once it's on paper, you're like, is there a small actionable step I can take to move this forward? And if there isn't, you put it into that balloon and you choose to let it go. Okay, so just doing a quick time check. So I want to now talk about trusting your gut instincts. So I could not talk about empowerment. So I'm an empowerment strategist, and I can't talk about empowerment without mentioning your inner guidance system. So I talked earlier about how I help clients tune into their inner guidance system and learn to navigate the world from that vantage point. So I want to talk a bit more about that navigation system so you guys can learn the same. So life right now, I feel, is just asking us to find our answers from a place of internal knowing, because there's actually nothing out there that feels particularly stable, including world leaders, right now. Okay, there's nothing outside of us that feels stable. So this is the time to go within, okay? And tune into your inner guidance system, okay? So people who can successfully deal with uncertainty, they really recognize and embrace the power of gut instincts. Okay, so they're able to recognize their own filters. They're able to identify if they're being overly influenced by their opinions or their emotions, or by other people's emotions or opinions. And journaling can help you recognize your filters. They're able to give their intuition some space. You can't force gut instincts. Our intuition works best when we're not trying to give it pressure to come up with a solution, right? So for me, I go out for a walk. Right, and you guys talked about some of the things that you do. These are great things just to give yourself some space, and now is the perfect time to come, to do that, because my best ideas always come when I'm not focusing on the solution or giving myself pressure. And so people who deal well with uncertainty, they take the time to practice their intuition. I encourage my clients to start listening to their gut instincts on small things and just see how it goes, and then cultivate that mechanism by over and over again with lots of other small things, okay, so that when something bigger comes around, they're just able to move through it with an internal knowing, right? So start small, just start with little things in your day, okay? And when all else fails, breathe. right? And you know, for me, breathing is really powerful. You know, I know that, you know, I've worked with police officers or military personnel or athletes, and they use breathing to relax and win in stressful situations. So whether they're facing gunfire or standing at that start line ready to win the race, the breathing calms down the body and focuses the mind. And in the addiction clinic too, we use deep breathing techniques just as one technique to help people recover from trauma like PTSD. So it's a huge part of the work that I do in the clinic. So let's not underestimate the power of your breath. And because, you know, when you focus on breathing, or you look out the window, or you're focusing on the birds in the bird bath, or, you know, you're just focusing on what's around you, you just interrupt that little static nightmare that's brewing up in your mind, okay? And there's lots of free videos and articles on mindfulness, and I just encourage you to you know, to find something that resonates with you. And for me, this is the most important slide: accountability. One of the main reasons that I agreed to provide the seminar with Stella, I mean, obviously I know Stella from before, but you know, what I love is the fact that, you know, she, like me, also believes that we're stronger together, and that's the ethos of companies like, you know, Wellbeing Escapes and Wellbeing at Home, helping people to come together and helping the community succeed, because there's no better feeling, right? So, and that's why I do what I do for a living, and it bears its fruits. So even if it's the last thing you feel like doing right now, now is the time to do it. Do a kind act for a stranger. You know, when you're going to buy a coffee for the person behind you in the queue. You know, pay a compliment to somebody walking down the street. Contact a friend, tell them how much they mean to you. By doing these acts of kindness and getting outside of your own funk can actually make you feel good about yourself. And scientifically, this is also true, because you know, in the clinic where I work as well, a huge part of recovery for addicts is getting them out in the community to help serve others. And so empowerment is not crumbling under the weight of your worries, but don't try and do it alone. And I said to you earlier, it's just so hard to do this by yourself. So one of the things I would encourage you guys to do is perhaps set up like a WhatsApp group or a support group with your best friend, or, you know, a peer or a partner, where you set like daily mind goals. So say, for example, you have a daily mind goal where, like, okay, so Jay, my commitment today is that I'm going to, when I have a negative thought, I'm going to put it into the balloon and let it go, right? And so that I don't perpetuate my negativity. And then you tell that to your best friend, and your best friend will say to you, well, this is my daily mind goal. And then at the end of the day, you check in with each other, because having that accountability just helps you stay on track. You don't have to pay someone like me to do it for you, but you can do it together in the community, okay? So, you know, let's try and focus right now on the things that we can control, which is how we think and how we feel. And let's find some ways to support one another in the community, and you yourself will reap the benefits too. And just remember that nothing lasts forever, even these periods of uncertainty. Okay, so I just want to end. We're going to move on to Q&A, so please hang around for that. But I just want to end by saying thank you very much for taking time out of your morning to listen to me today. Please, please, please connect with me on LinkedIn, details below. I'm Jay Ray, and on Instagram and Facebook. You know, do connect and follow me. I haven't been particularly great on it. I've been so busy with my clients, but I'm going to be putting lots of, during the course of the summer, I'm going to start putting together videos and stuff that I'm going to share all over my social media. So do connect with me then. And if you are interested in working with me, check out my website. I am offering, just for this weekend and just for Wellbeing at Home, a 25% discount on 4 sessions, which are valid for this weekend if you drop me a message and quote Wellbeing Escapes. Okay. All right, so let's stop there, and I'm just going to come out and let's get some questions going. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so somebody is saying to me, this is excellent. What about if you're experiencing so much pain in your body, i.e. migraine and vertigo, that your body is so painful that the balloon visualization or trying to be positive is really difficult because your body is in so much pain. There's so much fear attached to it. Yeah, you know, and again, it's really hard to it's really hard to, when you're in so much like physical pain, to try and be positive. But again, I want to encourage you to, there's this brilliant book called The Body Keeps the Score. This is a private message, so I can't reveal who it is. So I want to encourage you to get this book, because it starts telling you more about how these techniques that I've been talking about today, just do them like on a really, small minute by minute level, just small things to get out of your pain. Like when you're experiencing the pain, just take deep breaths, like really deep breath relaxation techniques to bring you small moments of relief. Like we have to start disassociating ourselves from the pain story, and so find ways to educate yourself on how to do that. The Body Keeps the Score, powerful book, life-changing, easy to follow, and I think you're going to really connect with it, because there's a lot of people like you who are experiencing the same thing. And again, this book has been profoundly impactful for many of the clients that I see too. Okay, so how do your methods differ from CBT? I'm having this therapy, but really struggling to deal with these negative thoughts. So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is, again, very similar. It's about refocusing the thoughts. Now, how I differ is that I'm also doing a lot of role play. So people will say to you, okay, well, try to be less negative, or try to focus on something you can control, or something like that. Whereas I will do role play with you. So I will role play with you a healthier narrative. So you actually get to experience, oh, okay, that's the vocabulary. That's what it can look like. That's what it can sound like. And that's what it can feel like. So I'm kind of tapping into what intuitively I'm feeling is coming up for you. And then I'm helping you cultivate a vocabulary around it. Okay. And also another part of the work that I do is I'm really training you and educating you along the way. So I'm actually telling you what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how it makes a difference. And then you start building a track record for yourself, because you start seeing the results in your own life, and then you're like, oh yeah, this does work, I want more. Okay.
What's the name of the book again, Jay?
The Body Keeps the Score.
Okay, we'll put it in the email as well.
I will do.
Yeah, when we send out the recording, we'll put that in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just typing it in here.
Body Keeps the Score. Yeah, I'll definitely drop it in an email to you, so to send out to the rest of the book. Thank you, Rosie, for your message. What if you wish you had done something different in the past? I think that's something everyone here can relate to. I'm sure we all have that feeling. So this is all about, again, stop and ask yourself, how helpful is it for me to perpetuate that thought? What good can come from that narrative? It's a compelling narrative, because obviously there's regret. But so this is all about letting go of the thoughts that don't serve you and don't help you, and then trying to find some space for a healthier narrative to come up. Okay, so when your internal dialogue is just basically just giving you a hard time, it's not actually giving you anything helpful, you have to say, is this thought helpful? Is this thought taking me to where I want to go? And if it isn't, it's going in the balloon, and it's going, right? So this is like, I want you to almost become like a bouncer to your mind, like you're deciding who comes in, right? Not just any random thought that's not helpful serving you.
Can I just add something there?
Yeah.
Because that's something that I have dealt with a lot. I just look at it, I can't control it anymore. It's gone. There is nothing I can do about what happened in the past. The same way, even with the future, there are things that are happening out there that I can't control. And just letting that go from that aspect.
Brilliant. Yeah, really well said. Yeah, you absolutely can't control everything, and again the need to control is usually you just want some sort of certainty, and that's just, and as I said earlier, that's just what we're wired to do. We just want certainty.
Are you okay with the questions, Jay? Do you want me to read them out? Are you okay with?
Yeah, if there, I'm just working my through. I can't get thoughts to go in a balloon. Any tips? Yeah, you know, again, if your thoughts can't, you know, there's so many different ways. I'm giving you lots of strategies because obviously not everything's going to work for everyone. So I thought, well, if I just give you a few, then, you know, something's going to stick. So if putting them in a balloon doesn't work for you, again, nothing's going to work the first time you do it. I'm going to tell you that now. Like, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel fake. It's going to be like, oh God. But, you know, it's a bit like when you go to the gym and you've never been to the gym before. The first gym workout, it just feels like, oh God, this is a disaster. I'm never going to be fit. And it's the same with the mind. It's a muscle too. So in the same way, when you're at the gym, you're working your muscles, right? You've got to do the same thing with your mind. It's practice, repetition, repetition, repetition. But to your point about not being able to let it go, maybe just try writing it down, like just, you know, writing it down. All I'm trying to say is get it out of your head so it's not polluting you, right? And when you've got it out of your head, it just dissipates some of that negative energy. And then just you can choose to refocus your mind on something else.
There's a question here about how to approach a difficult conversation. How would you introduce a difficult conversation?
Okay.
Further up.
Okay, I'm just wondering, is there any, I don't really have any context, I'm not quite sure. So,
okay.
I mean, more generally, so if there's a difficult conversation, this is about being really authentic. This is all about, really think about, well, what do I really want to say? You know, so often we respond from, you know, from a place of anger or, you know, rejection or hurt or pain. And so, you know, really take the time to think about, well, what do I really want to say? And then, I mean, obviously, if I had some context, I can give you a more specific answer. But all I will say is, you know, be authentic in your responses. You can't control how people respond to you. You just can't. But you absolutely can control, and you are responsible for what comes out of your mouth. Right. And, you know, sometimes, you know, when I'm talking, somebody else is responding with their comments. Now, that's their stuff. If they're responding in an aggressive way or a, you know, angry way, I can't do anything about that. But if I'm really thought about what I wanted to say and the way I want to say it, that's all I can do. That's all you can control. The rest is kind of out of your hands. And the rest is also kind of none of your business. You can't manage other people and their expectations. I know that's very broad, but
that's great. Thank you. No, that's really good response. I think a lot of this is about there's some other questions here about other people. One about elderly, very sick parents who get caught up in negativity because they're in pain. I mean, that, you know, I think that affects a lot of people dealing with other. It's like you can control yourself and how you're dealing with negative thoughts, but if you're surrounded by people who are negative, it's how do you deal with that, and how can you help empower them, I guess?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's such a big topic, and probably not one I can complete in the next 1 or 2 minutes. But what I will say is this: is that so often we get uncomfortable because someone else is negative, right? And if I did that, you know, I'd be a net wreck, because, you know, obviously when clients come to me, they're all, you know, they've got negative and they've got a lot of negativity, and they've got family who are negative and friends who are negative. So, but the thing is, it's my uncomfortability in trying to fix them, right? Because you can't, you know, some people who are negative, they're just negative. That's their journey. That's their path. That's where they're on. The best way to enact change in other people is to live and breathe it yourself. Like, I've been able to influence people just by me responding differently, just by them observing me, just by them watching me. Because after a while, they're like, well, what's she doing? I'm going to ask her, right? And so be, you know, as in the words of Gandhi, you know, be the change that you want to see, rather than trying to put it onto other people. So this is all about what you can't control, letting go of what you can't control. You know, imagine that everyone's in their own little bubble, right? So imagine everyone's in their bubble, and that bubble is their world. So if someone's really, really negative in your house or in your life, and they're really negative all the time, all that negativity in your head, I want you to visualize that all that negativity stays in their bubble. It stays in their world. It's not your bubble, right? It's not your world, it's their bubble. And your responsibility is to keep your bubble negativity free. Okay, so if they're spewing lots of stuff, or, you know, your internal dialogue could be something like, you know, this is their experience, this is their world, this is how they see it, and it's sad that they feel that way, but that's their right. They can feel whatever they want to feel. My job is to just be the best version of myself. That's probably all I can say.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a skill getting to that, and I guess not allowing people to bring you down, but it's as you say, it's a muscle. And an analogy I heard recently, which I thought was very powerful, because people don't work their mind, people don't work the muscle in their mind, or they don't give it the importance that it really needs. I heard an analogy around brushing your teeth, and I heard, well, what if you don't brush your teeth for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or, you know, what will happen to your mouth? Why don't we look at our minds in the same way? Why don't we look to clean our minds out, to keep our minds fit and healthy? Because it is as important as your appearance, your exterior, and you know, your mouth or anything else. In fact, probably more important, because it affects your physicality. So yeah, thank you, Jay, for the work that you do. Thank you for today. It was really, really interesting. And the one thing that you said, certainly for me, which was really powerful, and I would like to just endorse that, is that you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts do not control you. Your thought is just a thought, you know, and just be aware of that. When you have these thoughts, it's not reality. It's just not reality. So thank you very much.